you see the shield and you say to yourself, what does that shield stand for? And excellence is what each individual you try to bring when you walk in the door, when you're on the football field, when you're represented. And the one thing that stuck out more than any other thing is I'm on the football field practicing, and there's Raiders from every generation who are there.
Yeah.
Freddie B was on the coaching staff at that time.
Yeah.
Mike Haynes coming around. Just so many players who I, looked at and looked up to when I was in the league or when I was a fan were a part of the organization. And it wasn't just, words, it was really an impactful moment, for, that shield. And I have a lot of pride and really happy that I was able to spend my last, 4 years and, with the Raiders and the organization and wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
I got in a little skirmish, you would say, with a baboon.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
I always wanted to be like Bo Jackson because I love baseball and football so much. I'm playing MLB and then I'll play football too.
All right, Raider Nation, it is time for another episode of Raiders Talk of the Nation. I am your host, Sibley Scoles, and I'm joined by none other than Eric Allen sitting with me on this beautiful, lovely couch. You said you come up here, you chill, you do interviews.
This is the spot.
This is the spot.
It's quiet, but behind us, that's where the action's going. They're breaking doing film back there, doing all this stuff. But yeah, this is kind of my quiet spot in the mornings.
I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Thanks for sharing it then. Well, listen, I've not got to talk to you. You and I and JT the Brick, we've got our segment that we do on the field now during game days, which has been amazing.
It's been cool.
It's been cool to be able to be there side by side with you guys. But for this show, we haven't got to sit down yet. So I want the fans to, if they don't know, now they're gonna know everything about you. We won't ask for the social security number, so don't worry.
I can't do that.
But let's talk the roots. Growing up in San Diego, beautiful San Diego, by the way. I love going down there. The air is different. It's crisp. The water.
Man,
what was that childhood like for you?
Well, we're so different from the rest of California, I think. Just a ton of tourists, right? But it's a military town.
Yes.
And both my grandfathers were in the military. So my paternal grandfather was in the Army. Okay. My maternal grandfather was in the Navy. So that's kind of where we stood, and it's a military family, and everyone had, a parent who was in the military. My dad was in the Marines. So we had a really cool street, 42nd and Ocean View, and
nice.
I'm in the cement there, so I screw up, early on. Yeah, so just a great upbringing.
Yeah.
A lot of sports. We played baseball, football time. I have an older brother and an older sister, so I followed my brother all around. He's 8 years older than me, so it was almost like a father figure.
Right. That's nice to have.
Yeah, really cool, So a lot of the things that he went through, all the hurdles and those things. I grew up 60s and 70s, right? So just that influx of, gangs and all this stuff. So he kind of kept me away from all that.
Right.
So I had a great childhood,
So you were on the actual military base, or you were off the base?
No, we're off the base.
You were off
yeah,
base.
we're off the base.
Okay, because I know that's a different lifestyle
It
too.
is.
Yes, my
right?
parents are Army kids as well, so they told me about that.
Yeah. And at the time, we were in like a community, an area where the families had just kind of moved off base.
Gotcha.
And so that neighborhood was just really vibrant and just a lot of folks from different areas. My grandparents come from Mississippi.
Oh, nice.
So when my great-grandmother would come to town, like the kitchen was just popping,
She got
all the great smells,
Do you remember a favorite meal that she made you?
Well, I think when you start talking about those times, really the desserts, the peach cobbler. Oh man, my grandma, she made a
With ice
peach
cream?
cobbler. Yes, of course, with ice
a la
cream.
mode. Yes.
Yeah, which was great. So
Yeah.
I always look back at those times with great fondness
Yeah.
and just joy, and that's kind of what shaped me.
You mentioned sports, obviously, and having older siblings.
Yeah.
When did the love of sports come, and specifically football for you?
Football was actually later on. I was a baseball
So you
guy.
just baseball
Yeah,
first?
my community, we played a lot of baseball, and at that time I was born in '65. Yeah, I'm an old dude.
No.
And so you think about the '70s, and the Padres were just kind of starting. We had
Yeah.
a farm team, and that farm team, some of those players were in and around our community. And so that's kind of where the love of baseball, and then my
Gotcha.
brother was a pitcher, and so I would watch him in Little League, and so the baseball bug hit us early.
Right.
And of course, San Diego weather, you can play year long.
All the time,
Yeah,
yeah.
year long. And then we had some players who were like in our Little League who had played like senior league and went on to the minor league baseball. And so they were always coming back with their hats and everything. So that was kind of a thing, you know, hey, the high school, get drafted out of high school. That was a
Right.
big thing. So that's kind of the love of that sport. And then I just played football because everyone on the block played football.
Oh,
So
okay, so that's how it started.
That's how it started. And we practiced at the legendary Lincoln High School, which is in Southeast San Diego. And Marcus, that's where Marcus Allen went to school. So while we were practicing, Marcus and those guys were finishing. And we would stay on Fridays to watch Marcus play in high school.
That's so cool.
And he was, you're talking about like tremendous.
Yeah.
Like he was a quarterback, played safety, and we just sit there and watch that team. And they had a bunch of other players who were great, but,
Right, but-
that's kind of like, wow, that guy is really good, you know?
So to be able to be that age and see someone,
Yeah,
Like that,
that's
it was-
so special. So
That really stuck with you.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
It really stuck with me and stuck with everybody in the neighborhood. And
did
we
you
kinda
have those
took pride.
conversations with Marcus early on?
So
in
me and Marcus's younger brother, Michael,
Okay.
played against each other.
Oh,
All the
okay.
time. Yeah, so like in Pop
That
Warner
was
and stuff.
okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, you're that guy's brother?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you're
Small
good too? Yeah, so it's a small world. Small
That's
world.
amazing. And
Yeah.
then both end up on the,
Yeah.
that's crazy. It's wild.
Yeah.
That's a good childhood and upbringing.
Yeah, yeah.
Fast forward over to Arizona. Let's hop over there real quick.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of jumping around today.
Right, it's cool.
But how did we get there? What was the situation? Why there? Why did we choose?
Well, so again, going back to the love of
Mm-hmm.
baseball. So playing baseball in high school, after the 11th grade year, we won the CIF championship, and we had a pitcher who went to the minor leagues and his name is David Wells, ended up pitching for the Yankees
Okay.
and the Padres. So he was a great player. We had a couple other players in that team who went to college and went to minor leagues. And all along, I was still playing football because that's where all my friends
Right.
played football, so played in high school. So the recruiting coordinators are coming to Point Loma High School to recruit me. And I loved Arizona State because of their baseball program. And so the coach comes and is like, hey, you can come here, play football and play baseball. And I was like, what?
Both?
Play you at Arizona State where
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson,
Right.
played, baseball. So right away I was like hooked. I was like,
Yeah,
that's great.
sold.
Yeah, I can go here on a football scholarship and then play baseball. Little did I know, he knew.
He's like, I have
He's
a
like,
plan in
yeah,
mind for you.
He got me. He got me.
You can do both.
You can do both, right?
Yeah.
So we go to Arizona State, and the first spring, I got a hamstring issue, so I had the red shirt the
Right.
first year. And then the spring, I'm going to baseball. And so I go to the field, and me and some other guy, a friend of mine, we go on, and we get to the facility. I didn't know at the time, Barry Bonds was on the team. This guy named Mike Devereaux, who
Okay.
played for the Atlanta Braves, like the first or second player taken, he was on the team. Mike Kelly, another player, top 5, he was on the team. The comeback player of the year, the Odie McDowell was the player of the year in baseball. They were all in the outfield. They were
Wow.
So basically, the head coach is like, "Hey, take the hat and go back to football." So I never even got a chance
Oh no.
to do anything. Yeah, so the setup was on.
That's.
Yeah.
I'm glad you can laugh about it now, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's like it all
yeah,
happens
I was
for a reason.
crushed.
But you're like, wait.
I
this
know,
person-
right? So, and at the time, you don't know who these guys are. You're like, I'm
Right.
Eric Allen, right?
Yeah.
I just won a championship in baseball in high school. But so to this day, Barry Bonds and me are really good friends.
I love that.
Yeah, so it was cool. But that was the time when it was like, okay, you better get your stuff together.
Right.
And the team we were on, football team, was really good. And we
Yeah.
had some really good players who came in our recruiting class. And so we kind of, just kind of bonded together and, created this great family of,
love that.
misfits from all over the place, and end up having a really great couple of football teams, and ended
Yeah.
up winning the Rose Bowl, which was the first time in Arizona State history.
Wow, you're a part of that.
Yeah, we had probably 10 guys drafted off that
Wow.
draft class that came in.
Yeah.
Like first, second, third rounders. Randall McDaniel's a Hall of
Special.
Famer. So we really kind of bonded together our kind of different personalities and ended up having a successful college career.
Did you ever stop and think, oh, but I really wanted to, like, did it ever hit you or you just knew, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Let's just kick it into gear.
After understanding like
What?
what it takes to, to be at that level, and then the football wise, it always came really easy for me.
Okay.
Because I played offense, played a little bit of everything, and I really wasn't sure kind of what kind of player I would be. And just seeing other players kind of have success, and I was like, man, I did the same thing he did, and now the guy's playing on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right.
Like, well, that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Let's do that.
yeah, let's do that. The big turning point
Yeah.
was the 86 or 87 strike in the NFL. They had a strike,
Okay.
so the guys came back to their colleges to work out. And I had a really good friend, his name was David Fulcher, and he was a tremendous player in college and ended up having a great career in the pros also. But he came back and he was like, oh man, you guys could play in the league. We're like, what? And he kind of really encouraged us. And like from that point on, like it was on.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was on. So just kind of trying to find some players
Yeah.
that I could look at and say, hey, let me pattern my game after this person, after that person. And I've always had those kind of football role models to kind of pattern my game after, even if they didn't play defense.
You still, yeah.
I still kind of
took
like, hey,
pieces from all-
yeah. It was always Marcus.
Right.
You want to have that impact. He was so smooth. You're kind of always in the right place at the right time. And then, of course, position-wise, Mike Haynes, who went to Arizona State.
Love Mike, right?
Right? He went to
Yeah.
Arizona State.
Yeah.
Kind of had the similar story. But, I mean, he was a tremendous player, and just breaking down film and kind of finding out what he did against certain guys kind of helped me with my, we call it the bag.
Right.
It's like a tool chest. And you have to have the right tool in the chest for each. You're playing Jerry, you're playing Michael Irvin
Right.
or Randy Moss or wherever. You have to have the proper tool.
equipped for-
yeah,
yeah.
to be able to be successful.
That's
Yeah.
It seems like, talking, I love speaking with elite athletes because, like yourself and human beings, because it just seems like something about your life, it got you there. Like it was supposed
Yeah.
to be this way.
Right,
And
right.
you were able to, and that's why we're going to talk about when you got drafted. 1988,
Yeah.
pick 3, draft round 2.
Uh-huh.
Talk to me about that experience in the draft, just waiting for your name to be called, to know what's happening, to just the emotions that go through you during that time.
Yeah. Well, that's it's not like it is now, where everyone goes to the draft.
Right.
And you have guys. I really didn't have. I was confident. And again, it's really all about relationships and contacts, people you know. We had a strength and conditioning coach at Arizona State. He left a couple years early, and he was a strength and conditioning coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Buddy Ryan, who's the head coach of Philadelphia, was looking for a cornerback. So he's like, hey, Buddy, I have a guy who I think fits perfectly for you. So this was kind of like during the middle of the season, he calls the athletic department to have me call him, because we don't have cell phones back then.
You kids today wouldn't make it, okay?
No cell phones. So it's like, so I'm at my apartment and I'm talking to him, and he's like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. Buddy Ryan loves you, and he's really, thinking about finding a way to get you in the draft. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I have no idea what the process is like.
Right.
So I just keep playing, and again, towards the end of the year, he's like, hey man, you're our number one guy on the board.
Right.
So the season's almost over. You did great. You're going to interview with these different teams, but man, you're our number one guy on the board. So I'm calling my brother, calling everybody, like, man,
about to go down.
The Philadelphia Eagles want. So you have to go through the All-Star game process. Right. So I go to the All-Star game, and I'm, Sterling Sharp, Shannon's brother, is a really good football player, and during practice, I'm matching up with him, and he's supposed to be a high draft pick. All these guys you kind of meeting and going back and forth with, and you go to the combine and have a really good combine, and there's a couple other teams who are interested who need cornerbacks. And so as we get into that day, I'm not nervous at all. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be a Philadelphia Eagle.
Right.
But the Chicago Bears, Atlanta Falcons, they all need players also.
Well, yeah.
So you're getting these phone calls throughout the day, how you're doing, what are you feeling like, and my agent's not even with me. I'm at my apartment by myself.
You're just doing this by yourself?
Yeah, my agent is in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So, and the calls are coming directly to me. So they're calling me like, hey, we're next up or whatever. And the Chicago Bears have a pick in the second round, and the Eagles call me and say, the Bears are going to call you. Don't answer the phone. Because I was supposed to go 13th, but the tight end from Oklahoma was still there, so Buddy drafted him, called me afterward and said, we're going to pick you, we're going to move up in the draft. But wait. I'm like, all right. It's like,
I love that you're just by yourself in your apartment doing
this. Answering calls, talking to GMs and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I trust you, bud. It's like, luckily.
Were you sweaty?
No.
You weren't worried or stressed? You're just like, let's do it.
It's like I'm going to be on the Eagles.
Yeah,
so
you're making
I'm
me
supposed
sweat
to.
thinking about this. I'd be sweating.
So I don't go to the Bears, obviously. Buddy trades some picks, moves back up in the draft, picks me, and he's like, you're going to start because you're not the pick where I thought I was going to pick you. I'm going to start you, put some incentives in your contract so you can make that money back.
Nice.
He was awesome.
That's cool.
He was so cool. So get drafted, and I fly back to Philadelphia, and everyone was welcoming. It was a perfect place. The players who were there welcomed me. It was just an amazing experience, and that was the first time I met one of my favorite people in the world is Reggie White. So
nice.
it was a. I'm glad I missed that call.
Right.
For the Bears.
You're like, it was a good thing.
Yeah, it was a good thing.
That experience that you took playing with them, and then obviously again we're jumping around, but get me to Oakland.
Yeah.
And that experience there, and how that transition happened for you, and the time there.
Right. So again, once you signed with the team, you thought you were going to play with that team forever.
Yeah, that's what you think.
That's what you think. But Reggie was the first big name to really have free agency when he was still a dominant player. So he left Philadelphia, went to Green Bay. And that kind of opened everything up for everyone else. So there's a possibility if things are not going well with the team you're on, you can possibly go somewhere else. So, Reggie left, and that's the start of that Philadelphia team starting to kind of disband.
Right.
A couple years later, I was able to leave and get out of there and go to New Orleans. And while I was in New Orleans, the head coach, kind of was a disciplined, old school guy. And we had a very difficult training camp, 3 days. We would practice full pads for the first 2, then the third we would condition. I mean, he was all about it. And I'm cool with it,
Right.
just getting you ready.
Go to work,
ready to play.
yeah.
But the season didn't go as well as planned. So the middle of the season, this head coach comes to the auditorium and said, "Hey guys, I've turned in my resignation," and they accepted. And I'm turning around looking at everybody like, this dude's gonna put us through 3 days,
Hey,
and when
you're
things
leaving?
get tough, leave? Man, you are whack, bro. So obviously that's not the place for me,
Right.
So
You're
I
just
was
gonna jump ship.
Yeah, so I played the year out.
Okay.
And I was able to say, I went to management, I was like, listen, I'm in year 10 here, and I want to be in meaningful football games
Right.
in the end, and I'm just not going to sign back. And they were like, what are you talking about? You still under contract. I was like, well, if you guys don't trade me, I'm going to retire. So I kind of forced their hand. And this is early on. And again, it's like you're aware, but you're not really aware of like the ramifications
What
of
would
you
happen.
going into the general manager and saying, I'm not going to play,
Right.
So I'm kind of, going through this process. Willie Shaw calls. Willie Shaw was the defensive coordinator for the Raiders at the time, and it was going to be his first year. Willie was the coach who recruited me to Arizona State. And we were super tight. We were super tight, right? Even though he gave me the you can play baseball.
You can play both,
Yeah. But he taught me so much about the game, and
Wow.
yeah,
Full circle then.
Just a great coach, and
Yeah.
I knew he had my back. And he said, "Hey, you need to fly out here to Oakland. It's a new organization, a new coach, and a new staff." So I fly out, and many people know the story. So I fly out, and I'm talking to this young guy in the lobby, and I think it was the facility was almost brand new. They were still kind of working on it, whatever. So I'm talking to this guy in the lobby, and we're talking about Philly. We're talking about football in general. And so I finished talking to him. We have a great conversation. And then I go to Coach Shaw's office, and he kind of describes, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to probably get this young kid from Michigan to play the opposite corner. And this kind of defense we're going to run. We're going to do this. He's like, you know the deal. I was like, yeah, everything looks cool. He told me about, we had Daryl Russell.
Yeah.
And Daryl's from San Diego. And he's good friends with my niece. Okay. So I knew D. Russ from ever, right? So I'm talking to him. Then I go and talk to Al Davis. So I'm in the room with Al Davis, and the Raiders were my team growing up. I was the only guy on the block who was representing the Raiders. Everybody else were San Diego Charger fans, right?
Yeah.
I had a Cliff Branch jersey. He's the reason why I wear 21.
Yeah.
I love Fred Blitnikoff, and of course they had Mike Haynes and Marcus. So that was my squad.
That was
So I'm talking to Al Davis.
Was that a surreal moment
It was
for you?
crazy. So I'm like, I'm talking to Al like, hey, why don't you play Marcus Allen? What happened with that? I'm saying all this stuff.
You're like, I got a game plan for you.
Right. Like, what's going on here? And he's like, hey, it's none of your business, So he's up for it. He's like, what are you gonna do? You gonna play for us or not? Like, I don't know, Mr. Davis.
And that's how he said it to you, just
just blunt. It's like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna play for us or what? And I was just, man, the moment was just crazy. It's like, there's no way I'm gonna make that decision right now, just too much stuff going on. So he's like, all right, go talk to our head coach. And so I walk into the head coach's office, and of course it's John Gruden.
Yeah.
But that was the guy I spoke to when I came. Yeah, I thought he was like, seriously. John looks like 28 right now. Can you imagine in 1998?
A kid in there?
Oh, yeah. I thought he was like, I didn't know who he was, right? So, and he's like, he's like, what's up? What are you gonna do? And I was like, I got to go back home, talk to Lynn Marie, talk to my wife. And so we're having a great conversation too. And we talked a little bit about New Orleans and some of the players in New Orleans. So I fly back to San Diego, and it must have been a day or two. a good friend of mine, Anthony Newman, calls me up. What are you doing? I'm like, man, I'm trying to make a decision. And he played with me in New Orleans. But he had retired. And I was like, what's up, man? He's like, oh, I'm in Oakland. I was like, what you doing in Oakland? Gruden signed him. Gruden signed. The conversation we have about players.
We listened to you.
Yeah, he signed him. And I was like, wow, that's what else can you, the impact, like.
Just from that visit.
Just from that visit. You give my buddy another opportunity to provide for his family.
Right. Life-changing.
Yeah, that was just, so I was like, yeah, I think, this is the right spot.
Home.
Right. So I called him up and I was like, hey, I really appreciate, what you did. And there's, when is a press conference? So yeah.
I love it.
So I flew up in the next couple of days, and it's a great picture of the press conference. And I'm sitting at the press conference, and I have my oldest son, Austin, is there at the press conference, and he's kind of messing with the microphone. And he's probably like 3 years old or something like that. But it's just a cool moment. Sometimes I look back and, he's there, and so that's kind of how I got to the Raiders.
Wow, that's a beautiful story.
It's pretty cool.
And again, so many pieces.
Yes.
It's like a full circle moment for you.
Sure
and
is.
you mentioned your impact that you had just in that conversation. So
Right, yeah.
knowing how special it is when you see the shield, even still to this day, what does
Right.
it represent to you and what does it mean to you?
You see the shield and you say to yourself, what does that shield stand for? And excellence is what each individual you try to bring when you walk in the door, when you're on the football field, when you're represented. And the one thing that stuck out more than any other thing is I'm on the football field practicing, and there's Raiders from every generation who are there.
Yeah.
Freddie B was on the coaching staff at that time.
Yeah.
Mike Haynes coming around. Just so many players who I, looked at and looked up to when I was in the league or when I was a fan were a part of the organization. And it wasn't just, words, it was really an impactful moment, for, that shield. And I have a lot of pride and really happy that I was able to spend my last, 4 years and, with the Raiders and the organization and wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Yeah.
I love it. Did you write a book about yourself yet?
No, not yet.
It's on the way. It's on the way, right?
Not yet. Yeah.
See, you got
couple more things to.
These are good memories. You can start the book writing now, and then keep adding the volumes.
Sure.
Now, from the field and all that experience to the booth.
Yeah.
Taking that there and hearing your voice and having the show and working with the Raiders, being an alumni. Was that always something that you wanted to do? Was that a natural transition for you?
Yeah, that was the one thing that was planned. Even going back to Arizona State, in that transition before David Fulcher came back to kind of let us know, my whole deal was to be on ESPN.
Oh, okay.
That's what I wanted to do. Like
So
my 2.5 years of on scholarship, seeing all this stuff. Oh yeah, I want to win the Rose Bowl, but I want to work for ESPN.
Let's get this Rose Bowl.
Yeah, let's get this Rose. Yeah,
nice.
that kind of was the thing for me. So early on, I had to make a choice. When I was drafted for Philadelphia, he was like, if you're going to start and be a professional player, you have to come now. Like you can't go back to school. You have to make that choice. So I withdrew from school, went to Philadelphia, become a professional football player. And he told me, if you do that, what I'll do is off times in the off season, I'll get you an internship with a television station, So I was able to early on hook up with a guy named Yuki Washington, who's out of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He's a really esteemed At that time, he was doing sports. He was a lead sports guy at one of the networks. So I would do stuff with him, internships, and just kind of be around. The next year, I had a show on Tuesday. It was like off day with EA.
Yeah.
So I would go to the players' home, and we'd kind of ride around. What you do on your off day? Is it a family day? Do you go to the Y? What do you do?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a really cool
personal,
little segment.
cool, yeah.
Segment. I did a post-game show. Crazy. I did a post-game show as a player after our games in Philadelphia.
Really?
Oh, just I mean, after
How
the
was
games.
that?
Yeah. What am I doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Like, who advised me
You're
to do
never
that?
off the clock. It was just
Right.
okay.
So after the games, I would shower,
and go
go to the post-game show. And all these fans would be in this, like we were in this like Philly bar.
This
and they
would be
like,
cool for the
what
fans."
happened today, man? I was like,
I was gonna say, if you lose, it's not a fun show, right?
Right. Fortunately, we won like 11 or so games that year, and we're close. But yeah, just experience of kind of like right there.
Yeah.
Experiencing that, and that kind of led to all of this. And every time, a network would come around, I would always keep cards. So, doing an interview, like, hey, man, let me get your cards. Or
Yeah.
keep cards. So later on, even in Oakland, I had a show. I would do stuff on Fridays with one of the shows. So that was always a part of what I was going to do afterwards.
Yeah.
It was just who, what network, and when.
Where it was gonna, right?
Yeah. And later on, years, 12, 13, 14, you would kind of see like who are the networks hiring, who are they firing? Because there used to be like the 3 or 4 years they would go through a couple guys, and then kind of replace them. So I remember that last year, it was the tuck rule game.
Yes.
And I'm sitting in the locker after the game, and I'm just like, man, this may not be meant for me. The Super Bowl may not be meant for me.
Yeah.
Right. So the first year in 1988, I went to the playoffs and I played Chicago, and it was the Fog Bowl.
Okay.
So, we were a passing team, and halftime, this fog rolls over the stadium, and I'm telling you, there's pictures out there where you're standing on the sideline, you can't see to the middle of the football field.
That's crazy.
So that was my first year in the playoffs. So I'm like, I'll be back many times.
Yeah.
And so I did get back several times, but that was almost that Saturday, the tuck rule. And it was like, what's going on?
What is happening
here?
here?
What's happening here, right? So, so I knew I was kind of in the locker room. I was like feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to make my decision right now, but I'm going to really give it consideration. And so kind of after that, the whole deal with, trading our head coach to another team and
All the
things were kind of happening. And I had a good relationship with one of the producers who were at ESPN. Mm-hmm. And so I just went to take a couple interviews. I went to CBS.
Did your rounds?
I did my rounds before I made a decision. And it was funny. I went to ESPN, and they had me break down this segment on Randy Moss and Charles Woodson. And it was my teammate.
Yeah, you're like,
so I was like, I'm fresh off like understanding and knowing exactly what the matchup was and what kind of happened. So it went really well. So I fly back home, and I called the Raiders. I was like, hey, I'm done. I'm finished. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, no, we still have the,
next chapter?
Yeah, still have next chapter. And I was like, I think it's best now that I go. And so that season, I was Monday morning, they called it Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
It was me, Quadri Ismail, and a guy named Mike Hill.
Wow.
And we had I think the first show that all the hosts were African American. Yeah, It was really cool. So we did that for maybe 4 or 5 years, and then I transitioned to doing First Take, and so I did that for like 14 years. Yeah, and had some really great times. The travel became a little bit of an issue.
Lot.
Yeah, when you have,
Family,
4 sons.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they're playing sports.
Yeah, they're playing sports, and you want to be a part of that, so.
Yeah.
I went from there to I did the Pac-12 network for a little while. We're closer to home.
Right.
The offices were in San Francisco, and did that for a couple years. And Gruden got the job here in Oakland, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I'm working. What do you mean what I want to do?" He's like, "Do you want to coach?" I was like, "No, too much time coaching." He's like, "I think I'm gonna hook you up with Silver and Black production, see if you want to do something with those guys."
Yeah.
And I didn't have any idea what it was, and so we made the phone calls, and when we flew out here, and it was the first year of COVID.
Oh,
COVID
that's
was
okay.
so
2020.
yeah, 2020 came here, and I remember being in the facility, and everybody was masked up, and it was a whole different vibe. We shot the show, no one's in the stands, so we were able to, in that year we had some great quarterbacks. Tom Brady we had in the building, Drew Brees, I think Josh Allen. So it was really good from a football standpoint to kind of hear those great quarterbacks audible at the line of scrimmage, and you could hear everything because no one's in the stadium.
Empty, just empty.
So yeah, it was like really bizarre, but we grew to kind of understand what I think we wanted the product to look like and sound like and be like. So Marcus has done a great job. So it's been a blast, and it's really fortunate to to have the Raiders back in my life again.
And another chapter adding.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame finalist.
Yeah.
I mean, those are accolades that you strive for. You want. I think you look forward to be in those moments. When you did get that call, when you got the news, where were you at? What was that going on, and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I was at home, and it's always when you are in that discussion, when you're in that group of guys, there's nothing else you can do. So it's up to someone else to kind of go to bat for you.
Right.
So, because as a player, you think, towards the end of your career, you start looking at numbers and who's ahead of you and those things. You're like, oh yeah, this guy's in there and he has these numbers. We have the same numbers, and so it should be an easy transition.
Right.
Who can't see that? But there's other factors that are going on.
Yes.
Super Bowls, teams you played with, people who are voting. So, last year I was just so nervous and anxious the whole way, knowing that, yes, I belong there.
No question.
No question, with the group of guys, and then you're always talking to your peers who are in, and they're like, man, we can't wait till you're there so we can all have a party and this and that. Last year I was, just nervous and anxious. This year I'm more calm, and I'm really confident this year that I'll eventually get that big call, because you get a call when you're in the final, it's either way.
Right.
And the call that you don't want to get is the early call, which so yeah, they called me and said, hey, and unfortunately, you didn't make it, but we're hoping that next year's a different call.
Next year's a different,
Please don't say anything, because the official voting hasn't come out yet.
Right.
So, obviously, I turned to Lynn. I was like, yeah, I didn't make it. And she's like my biggest supporter. And she's like, who do I need to call and get this right? Do they really know who called you?
She will protest right now.
Yeah, right now, yeah. So we had to keep it under wraps for like a week or so.
Really?
Which was difficult,
because
people all still like, hey, man, I know you're going to get in there, E. I know you're going to get in there. Like, yeah, man.
God, hold this in.
I know. So that was a difficult time,
Yeah.
But like I said, this year, totally different. I feel confident. After going through that process, you know what it's like.
Already now,
and it's obvious I can't do anything. I can't go back on the field and get
Right.
another interception
Right.
or, no.
Could you imagine?
Right, yeah.
We can
Hey,
get
hold
two more
up.
real
You're right.
quick.
Slow down, buddy.
I'll show you.
No, yes, right. Was that man-to-man you said? No, we're not doing that today.
Oh my
Patrick
gosh.
Graham in there with him, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like,
But it's nice that you are now in a space where you are calm
Yeah.
and it's not an anxious feeling. So I think that says something
yeah, it
about
does.
where you're at right now.
It does. And a lot of the feedback
Mm-hmm.
has also helped me and supported me in being able like, okay, hey, you know what? This
Yeah.
is going to be a great opportunity. So just try and enjoy the process and bring as many people as you can
Yeah.
who should be there, right? And so I think that's the big thing with me now is it's not me. It's an opportunity for me to showcase and highlight all those people who were supportive throughout the way, and
yeah.
hopefully give them their flowers and their shine
Right.
for that time. Because obviously I was the one who was doing all this stuff.
Yeah, you were
So
on-
no
yeah.
matter what, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
good.
Because you did it. You were there.
But
yeah.
for, like I say, my wife, who I met in
supporters,
11th grade.
Oh my gosh. you
Like,
guys
dude,
met
that's
on
my
there.
high school sweetheart. So she's been like ride or
seen
die
it all.
forever, like 16, 17 years old, you know. Of course, my brother and my parents, all my high school,
Yeah.
guys who are still down with me today. So it's an opportunity, and all those coaches, it's an opportunity, hopefully, to give them their shine and give them their
like
day too.
that.
Yeah.
You're so selfless.
I don't know about all that.
You're like, no, I'm not. Turn the camera off. I'll tell you.
right.
No, that's amazing. I'm excited for you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be,
Right, and for our department too,
I
how
mean,
cool
that's-
that'll be, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's gonna be great.
and I'm gonna wear my jacket everywhere. So,
Everywhere.
oh,
To grocery stores.
yes. Why not?
Yeah.
Like I have a whole
take
gold
all
suit.
the stuff out of your closet. Just have the jacket. And that's all you're gonna wear.
That's right. Yeah.
He's coming. We see the
Right.
jacket.
Yeah. And
As you should.
Right. And
As you should.
Like, what's funny now is the guys who like go crazy like online when my name comes up. I have a group of guys who I play with at the Y, like my hoop buddies.
Yeah.
Like they're my third team, right? They are just crazy, and I've been with them we've been playing for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're ready. And now I'm kind of embarrassed because, hopefully when I get that call, I might have to tell them like a day before, day after, because they're gonna come and they're just gonna be that
Losing it.
group that's over there like, I'm screaming and shouting and stuff, be embarrassed,
I hope they have a sign and everything.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be great. Party poppers.
Yeah, all that stuff.
fun.
Yeah, so I gotta give them a shout out too.
Oh, that'll be great. Well,
Yeah.
listen. Thank you for sitting down
Oh, thank you guys
and
for
talking
having me.
to it. If there's anything you want to say to Raider Nation, you can before we get out of here.
Listen,
It's in this camera. Let's do
listen,
that.
Raider Nation, we're going to be okay. You see some of those players popping off this season. How about the young guys continue to play well? Those are the guys we got to focus on this year. I know it's very difficult and sad to get through, but next year we're going to be on the money.
And we're ending on a positive high note. That's
There
how
you
you
go.
do it. Eric Allen, that was like we did the keys to the game.
That's right. Without all the fans
Without
going
all
crazy.
the fans.
Yeah.
No one's saying anything. It's silence. We need silence.
That's
but
right.
thank you so much, Eric Allen.
You are the best.
Man,
You are the best.
no,
We
I'm
appreciate
watching
you.
you. I listen to you, and I'm just grateful to be amongst you, and JT and everyone else that's a part of this organization. That's
Yeah,
Silver and
we
Black
have a great
Production.
crew. We
Great
do.
crew and great fans.
That's right.
We'll see y'all next time on another
Yes.
episode. Raiders Talk of the Nation. I'm Sibley.